Great. So we'll start off with just if you could tell us a little bit about Bank Vogue.
Yeah, so Bank Vogue is based out of Ottawa, Canada, and it was founded by myself and my partner about 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My partner this year actually won one of Canada's top entrepreneurs. But the focus of the company is basically the innovative and relevant solutions to the crisis of stuff. And what we've focused on for the last 20 years is what to do with all the clothes that people are buying and then discarding in a more and more rapid way. So we've focused on helping charities and private collectors find homes around the world for clothing, shoes, purses, belts, hard goods that are essentially donated or collected and diverted from the landfill. And we now are moving about 40 and 60 containers or lorries a week of used clothing. So it's about 4 million garments a week of used clothing.
Wow. So that's all in Canada, is it, or is it worldwide?
It's worldwide, yeah. So the extent, and one of the, in terms of the UK, one of our sister companies is about 15 years ago, we set up Beyond Retro, which is a retail outlet we're in London and in Brighton and in Sweden, where we're pulling out relevant garments from the stream of clothes that are being donated or sold. And we have 9 stores in Europe, vintage stores, as well as an online presence.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of one of the homes that we found to divert clothing from landfill.
Mm-hmm. And so you're actually a business, aren't you? So how do you actually run this business? Does it make profit, or are you funded?
No. So we're absolutely, this is for sure a for-profit enterprise. So the model works like this, is that people donate clothing to charities in the United States and Canada. And we work with about 270 charities across North America. And those charities are given donations of used clothing. Some of the charities have their own thrift store, and so they'll take the garments from donors, and they'll, in a typical thrift store, they'll hang or put out about 50% of what is donated. But of that 50%, only 50% of that sells. In other words, 75% of the donations that charities get in the United States don't sell in the domestic thrift market. And so we, as a business, we pay the charities on a per pound basis for that product. And then we find homes around the world for that product. And so we'll buy it from the charity by the pound, and then we'll sell it to, for example, somebody that runs a chain of thrift stores in Costa Rica, or a chain of thrift stores in Guatemala, or we'll sell it to a sorting facility in India or Pakistan or Dubai, where it's then graded into a myriad of categories, some of which are rewear in Africa, some of which is wipers that go to the wiper market in Europe, some of which is the shoddy business, which is where they cut up the wool and the acrylic and to turn it into new yarn or new wool. So essentially, clothing is 7% of the waste stream. So clothing and textiles. So out of whatever goes in the landfill, typically in North America, 7% of that is textiles. And our business is focused on trying to find homes around the world for specifically that product.
Okay, great. Wow, that sounds like a fantastic operation. So do you find that this is actually the answer to the masses of stuff that we have in fashion?
I think it's interesting that I don't believe that there's any panacea. So the way we participate in the solution and how we're making an impact. Number one, we're finding markets, reuse markets within the United States and within Canada and within the UK for domestic reuse. That's the first thing we're trying to do. Second thing is trying to find an international. But as a company, the other thing that we've done is about 5 years ago, we set up what is now the largest remanufacturing plant in the world, where we take garments, cut them up, and we make them into new and relevant garments. So we're actually reusing the fiber and the fabric, reusing the fabric to remake new items. So whether it be Beyond Retro's vintage stores, or whether it being our reselling of product into Central America, or whether it be reselling into the wiper business, I think that as we create more and more new markets, I genuinely believe that is part of the solution. And look, I mean, we are making an impact. Our big goal is to recycle 10 billion garments. That's our company's sort of massive goal. But by finding homes for over 4 million garments a week, it is exciting to see that there are growing opportunities for solutions. None of these are a panacea, right? We've also just doing our first shipment to Renewcell, which is a Swedish company, and I don't know if you know them. They recycle using a biodigester cotton, and then they reweave it into new cotton. So our first container will arrive in February. But our general belief is that, you know, as a company, we think that it's first and foremost important to find a reuse market, first domestically, then internationally, and then the fiber and recycling kind of comes afterwards, because it is the lowest value in the chain. You know, it's better, you know, using the analogy of wood. To us, it's better, you know, if you pull an old door out of a house, better to reuse the door as a door somewhere else. But if you can't use it as a door, can you then use the wood to build, you know, and if you can't build a piece of furniture with it, can you know, grind it up and make it into a piece of plywood? And then if that can't be done, you know, can there be another downcycling thing? But really, it's trying to keep the garment at an upcycled level rather than if that analogy helps.
Oh yeah, definitely. So basically, when you are recreating fiber, is that dependent on the quality and the fabric? Because I think if the fabric is combined, because quite often you find cotton combined with polyester or elastic.
Yeah, for sure. The project that we're working with for Renewcell is 100% cotton, not any mixed fibers, and for sure they're not what the fiber conversation is only at this point in time single pile. So there's obviously an active market for 100% wool. And there's an active market for 100% acrylic sweaters, as an example, or an active market for cashmere. But you know, it's funny that there is, and we're certainly putting energy and effort into the fiber business. But of the 4 million garments that move every week, the reality is that, you know, 70% of those garments, we can find a new home for those garments for them to be reused and reworn. And I think that it's important that conversation actively be had. That you know, our real focus, our first, as Bank Vogue's first focus, is how can we and where can we find active homes for garments to be reworn, especially in America, where a typical men's shirt is only worn 4 times. You know, it's kind of when you put it in those sort of really glaring statistics, it seems, you know, certainly as a business, there's nothing wrong with that shirt. We just got to find another customer, another person that wants to wear it, hasn't grown tired of it.
And do you find that the quality of these clothes that are just worn 4 times, they're good enough to last a number of years?
It's certainly the impact of fast fashion and this chase for the cheapest garment to hit the shop floor has certainly impacted the quality of the garment that we see as reused. The biggest challenge with it is, bizarrely enough, this is a little bit of a math exercise, so I apologize if it's a little mundane, but the way the thrift model works in the United States is, let's take a classic good, like a known brand, let's say a Ralph Lauren button-down Oxford shirt. You know, the classic shirt that they make. You know, if that shirt originally retailed for $70, it's reasonable that a thrift guy can get $12.99 for it. But if a new shirt is sold for argument's sake, $15.99, the secondary market, what value can the thrift store sell that shirt for? It's not just about can the shirt be reworn, but does it really erode the commercial model of what makes a thrift store work? And so, in other words, that $15.99 men's dress shirt, I'm using that as an example. That's got to really sell for $3.99 in the thrift store. And for the charity or for-profit thrift company, the biggest impact, I think, on that fast fashion is having is that ironically, fast fashion is now competing with thrift, and that competition really messes up the model of reuse, which should be the first port of call for any garment, and is an important step in the conversation of, you know, what should be done with all this stuff. Well, the first thing we should do is reuse it, as opposed to try to shred it up or remake it into a new garment. But then to your question of, is the quality of what we're getting. The one of it is yes, for sure, the quality is going down. And the amount of volume of product that has to go out to achieve the same dollar level at a charity shop or at a for-profit shop is significant. The impact of it is significant for sure.
So I guess when I generally talk to sustainable fashion brands, and what I'm finding is a lot of these brands really are very small. Sometimes they're one-man bands, and they really don't have the resources to try and inform the average consumer. Do you find that you being a successful business model, do you find that you are able to do marketing and reach consumers, or do you still find that because that is really the issue, isn't it, that the consumer really needs to kind of be a lot more aware of this situation and how to change their buying habits?
It's funny, so specifically the bags that we're making, so we're in our factory, as I said, we have this division which is the Beyond Retro upcycled clothing. This is the largest upcycling line. So we're doing upcycling at scale. One of our customers is Urban Outfitters in the United States. They have 300 stores across the United States, and we're supplying them with, for Christmas, for example, we're supplying them with mini backpacks that are velvet mini backpacks. They're printed velvet mini backpacks, which are made from discarded velvet dresses. Once you've worn your velvet dress once or twice, the typical consumer will just donate it to a charity. But so there's an enormous amount of velvet available. So we've cut up those velvet dresses and we've made mini backpacks, and we're selling them in Urban Outfitters. And for us, what is the most important thing is to make a relevant fashion story. In other words, velvet is on trend. Printed velvet is even better. The shape of that mini backpack is a very relevant shape. And then, oh, by the way, when you open up the inside of the bag, you'll see the story that our mini backpacks, which are being sold at Urban and at Beyond Retro in the UK, these mini backpacks are upcycled and remade and had actually zero water consumption in their production. We tell the story, but the first story that we tell is a fashion story, that this is just a handsome, relevant item. And so I'm not sure that I think I would be really uncomfortable proselytizing what I think is a really good thing. Do I think people should stop smoking? Absolutely. But I don't, I'm not hammering the you got to stop smoking conversation. I just want to make, we live a life that we don't smoke. And so we make a quality product that's upcycled. But the first story we want to tell is we want to tell a relevant fashion story. And then, oh yeah, by the way, it's upcycled. Because I think the audience, there is definitely a concerned, knowledgeable audience that's concerned about the impact of fashion, the impact of clothing on our environment. But I think the audience for relevant fashion is even greater. So it's funny. I feel as if there's a real opportunity as a business to tell our story, but using modern culture to be able to do it effectively.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's very tricky, isn't it? Because there is this fast fashion model that's really taken hold that doesn't seem to be slowing down.
No, and I mean the frustrating thing for us as a business is, so my mini backpack that I'm making from cut up velvet bags, we know that has to sell in an Urban Outfitters for $35. That's the price point and if I try to charge $55, even though it's got a great story, and to your audience that you say, well, I talk to these ethical brands and they're a 1 or 2 person shop. I'm highly empathetic of their situation because they might have a really great story of what they're trying to achieve and why they're trying to achieve it. But if they can't get that garment in the mass consumer's hands for an achievable price, I'm not sure they're going to get their story out as well. I generally don't believe that a revolution is ever a true revolution is ever done by the super wealthy. True revolutions are done by the masses, and that's the way in which we're trying to tell our story. We want to make our product achievable. We're doing it because we think it's the right thing to do and the right way to use these resources. And frankly, it's more difficult, it's more complicated, it's more expensive. But in the end, we believe that we're doing the right thing. I don't know if that was kind of a long-winded answer.
No. So you must be quite a massive operation operation then? How big is the operation that you have going?
We have close to 300 employees worldwide. The upcycling factory has 130 staff on hand. Frankly, our growth curve is there that says, there is even greater opportunity going down the road. For us to be able to demonstrate that we can upcycle on scale, for us is very exciting. And we see real opportunities in the future as well, not only with the recycling of fibers, but also, for example, we are doing some pilot projects with some brands where, because we have an upcycling facility and because we know how to deal with ones, brands are actually saying, wait a minute, why don't we go back to the people that bought our product and ask for it back? And if it needs to be repaired or amended, we'll do it, and then we can re-commerce it. And I actually think there are better people than me to talk about the urgency of the problem. What I'm, as an entrepreneur, what I'm really excited about is the opportunities that the urgency of the problem create for us as a business. So whether it be, more collections, whether it be the resale and domestic thrift, the resale worldwide, whether it be the upcycling facility that we're building, or whether it be the mend and repair operation that we've begun, we see the opportunities in a really exciting way.
And I guess what you mentioned earlier was very interesting. So when you're sort of creating, thousands of these bags, obviously you're able to access the quantities that you need, which is a rare position to be in, I think. So that's because of your massive operation of dealing with so many different retailers and charity shops.
Yes, there are many people in our sphere that will, paint the dire situation, which is very dire and needs to be addressed. But from a business perspective, what I'm excited about is there's actually now, for the first time, a concentration of the used clothes being sorted into 2 or 3 places in the planet. What that allows for is very specific grades of specific product that we can now say, okay, we need cashmere sweaters only. We need printed velvet. And because literally there are millions of garments a day going through the facility, we can make very specific grades. So in Beyond Retro, if you walk into our store just south of Oxford Street in London, you'll walk in and you'll see, for example, a elasticated top. It's a sort of off-the-shoulder top made from a men's Oxford shirt. But we're able to make that top because there are 5,000 Oxford shirts that show up every week in that facility. And so the concentration of the mechanics of the recycling industry are now allowing for new industries to be born, but more importantly, new industries at scale. And so for us as a business, and what's exciting from a retail point of view is in the way we can beat fast fashion is you walk into a fast fashion shop and you see that dress. Every single dress is going to be the same color, or they'll have it in 3 colorways. But because we're making it from reclaimed fabric, every one of our dresses will be different color or texture or weight, or every one of our velvet mini backpacks that are at Urban will all be a different velvet and a different print. And so from a retail point of view, it makes an exciting retail story. So it's a relevant fashion story. It's exciting sort of in terms of the retail look. And oh, by the way, if you open up the bag, there's a story that bag was fully reclaimed. And it's funny, as a business, and I think there are better people within the sphere that can talk about the crisis as it is. What we hope to do is find solutions.